these guys were coming on the pound they'd come marching in like they do when a bus comes. They come onto the compound. You can see them because we're all on the compound. So like you'd see these dudes like Mexican Mafia, Black Hand, you know, like all these dudes ripped up, scars all over them. And I spent 11 years in the feds. So yeah, like I was enveloped by the Boston car. They were always real good to me. Rhode Island guys, right. Providence guys, Boston guys, maniacs.
Yep.
You know, convinced myself that I wasn't gonna get, you know, indicted by the state or the feds because I'm stupid. The feds came knocking at the door. They've been clocking me. They came to my new apartment in Gloucester, literally knocked on my door and were like, yeah, Marshall Lane, like you're coming with us. Handcuffed me. Then they took me in, superseding indictment. You get this big old package, United States versus Marshall Lane. They just really like parcel it out. And it's like they're there to crush you. I think it was like 12 counts of like drug dealing. So it's like if one doesn't stick, all the others. You ain't getting away. Like when you're in the feds, like if you get indicted by the feds, you're fucked.
Got a moment when they see you down, just know they love it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bounce Back Podcast. I'm your host, B. Luke. I got a special guest with me today. So why don't you tell the people your name, where you're from?
Bobby, thanks. First off, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. My name is Marshall Lane. I grew up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. Currently, I live in Medford. Right now, I work in addiction treatment. I work for a company as a recovery coach out here locally. You know, I'll pick up side jobs doing addiction treatment or social services. At the moment, that's kind of like what I'm doing now to get by.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, that seems like something that's purposeful, you know, which I feel like when you have a vocation, we have a job to be able to wake up and go to bed and know you're doing something purposeful. I mean, talk about like your why behind that. Was that part of the reason you chose that, or is it like, oh, that's where the money is? Like, what's your why behind getting into that field?
So that's a good question, right? So, you know, obviously it wasn't about the money. I struggled with, you know, substance use when I was younger. So I had a fucked up, you know, childhood experience. My family struggled, my parents mainly, and drugs and drinking and like risky behavior, breaking the rules. That was my way of, I think, feeling like I was an adult and you know, finding independence for myself and also a way to escape the troubles I had experienced in the home.
I guess talk a little bit about your household, right? Did you have both parents in the house, and did you have any siblings growing up in the house? I guess kind of paint that picture about like what your household was like in those early years growing up.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll paint the picture. I'll make sure it's not a Picasso, maybe more like a Dali, you know what I mean? Yeah, so my mom and my father were together when we were young, and you know, me and my sister are like 2 years apart. I was the firstborn, and then she came, you know, almost a couple years later, and things were good in early childhood, but like right around like the age of like 5, 6 years old, like the marriage broke down, you know, and I've told this story before. Like my father has a bipolar, and you know, he was medicated young. Like they figured that out young, and he'd stopped taking his medication. And my mom struggled to kind of like, you know, deal with him, and she had her own struggles with like her weight and her appearance and drinking and things at those times. And the fighting in the house was vicious, you know, like they would go at each other. I have memories of it as a child, like, you know, being in like the little like romper crib or whatever where he put me and my sister to keep us from, you know, creating havoc, but they would be fighting, like viciously fighting. Wow. Right around 7, they ended up getting divorced. And, you know, so when you're a young kid, like you don't know how to process those things, you know? I think at that point, like my mother was resentful in a lot of senses because here she is, a single mother, she has to raise these 2 children. And she struggled with alcohol use. I'm not gonna go into detail, but you know, it was hard. She'd be hard, especially on me, you know, and I was a soft kid. In a lot of senses like my father, like I really struggled focusing on things. I was always in my own little world, big into like being out in nature and things. I didn't really talk much. I struggled with language. Gotcha. So like teachers and the schools really weren't very kind to me. So, you know how it goes. And you go to see the doctors and you get the ADHD diagnosis, and then they put you in the SPED class over here, and now like you're labeled, become a problem, and I am acting out, and you know, problems at home. So like I always just found myself on that bottom rung of like that socioeconomic ladder, whether it be in school, in society, because we were poor.
Yeah.
And I grew up in kind of like a wealthier area in Massachusetts. Life fucking hurt, man.
Absolutely.
As a kid.
I get that too, and to feel like you're getting that resentment from your mom, and that's got to be kind of I mean, how do you deal with that too? Because I know like I got a couple friends who like kind of dealt with similar situations, and it's like I don't know, it seems like it still affects them to this day. Whereas like these are supposed to be the people who love you. What do you think that was about? Do you think it was like her kind of taking it out, maybe what she was going through with your dad? Is there a physical resemblance? Maybe you just physically reminded her of him and it was like a subconscious thing? Or were you just acting out as well and not really being the, kind of being the pain in the ass, as kids can be a pain in the ass? Or, I mean, what do you think that stemmed from looking back?
The way you laid it out is very insightful, right? Because I think a lot of things came into play, and I'll outline it. So number one, I kind of feel that, like, you know, I love my mom and we have a great relationship. I love her more than anything to this day. You know, I'm a hyper loyal person and I just didn't really understand as a kid why she was hard on me. I think maybe because I was soft. And they come from a different generation, our parents, right? Like, you can't be soft as a boy. Like, you got to be strong. And so she really tried to instill that in me. And she took the father's role, which really wasn't appropriate. Right. And I just didn't understand that. And I think she was struggling and hurting on her own because of things that happened to her when she was younger. And I'm not going to talk about that, but, you know, she had that going on. And like, the difference is like where my mom, you know, she's a very strong woman. My father is just like a big softie. Like he wouldn't even spank us, you know what I mean? Wouldn't hurt a fly. So, you know, I get, you know, both sides, you know, and I'd have to learn how to navigate. I navigated to the best of my ability, but she was trying to mold me. Right. And I am appreciative. Like, I don't want to take that away. Right. She trained, like, she taught me how to sew when I was young. She made me clean and do work. I was working at 12 years old. She would always try to instill in me, like, boy, if you ain't going to do good in school, like, you got to, like, learn how to survive in this world. You got to work jobs, you know. So she kind of, like, gave me, like, this, she gave me heart and she gave me hustle. You know, and although she didn't do it in the kindest of ways, I understand now more than I did back then. Yeah, so the resentments come from a misunderstanding, I think. So I don't want to take too much from her because she is my mother, you know what I mean?
No, absolutely, trust me. I get it, man. I wouldn't trade, my mother is imperfect as she may be, I would pick her number one every time if we had to redraft the moms, man. That's just how I look at it. You gotta take the
mom draft pick.
Yeah, like give me the number one overall, even though I could probably trade back a couple rounds, but I digress, man. Anyway, so when this split up happens, is this involve like a move, or is it like does dad just move out and you stay like in the same town and all that? Or I guess walk me through that.
So I stayed with my mother at the house my father had bought, right? And my father moved out, you know, and like that was like a whole process in itself for him, right? He'd come see us on like Wednesdays and like every other weekend we go with him. You know, he like moved to Lowell and then like, you know, he ended up marrying some woman. You know, all this stuff happened in that time. And I think like what's important to mention is like I'm sitting here because of my incarceral experience, and like it was around like, you know, I got the ADHD diagnosis when I was like 8 or 9 or 10 or around then. So I was getting prescribed the Adderalls and things like that. So I think it's important to mention of like, that was like my first positive experience with a substance, right? It helped me, right? It was something that I could take and make me perform better, right? At school, it would help with my behavior. I could focus and, you know, like I was a C student. Like I didn't like school. I can't sit still. So I just, you know, it's not that I'm a stupid person, but like I never thought it was necessary because I thought that when I was young, I thought that life was more about how you engage with it instead of like, you know, trying to impress everybody around you like all the other kids in school, you know, and I like to have fun. So I just coasted with like C's, you know, being, you know, kind of like a disenfranchised kind of youth in that area, I got connected with the other disenfranchised youths. And we did like, you know, things that were considered troublesome, like, you know, joking, laughing, you know, fighting, all these things. And like, that's kind of what led up to like the real beginning of my behavioral issues.
Okay, so when you say other disenfranchised youth, right, was this at school, after school, both? I mean, where did you start to make these bonds with these other kids?
So like where we grew up in like this small town of Hamilton, it's like the poorest area of the town. It's like an old Christian campground. It's like some shit right out of a Stephen King movie. It's like, it abuts like a swamp, like a giant swamp. They call it the Great Swamp. Wow. And like, so you're just relatively poor living there, and everyone else is pretty wealthy. Cause like Hamilton's like an equestrian town. Like they still do fucking polo out there and shit, you know what I mean? Wow. So like, so we just, you know what I mean? We hung out with the poor kids. I had the Payless shoes with like the little 4 fucking stripes, and kids make fun of you.
Right, yeah.
You know, there was a period of time where the bus came and it was like, you know, I got picked up by the short bus, so we got picked on for that.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the 4 stripe shoes were those the K-Swiss. I don't know.
No, that was Payless. they had like the Payless, like everything was cheap. You know what I mean? And then like up the street there was a few homes that had foster kids, right?
Okay.
So like we were running with them, and then like we just kind of like brought in all the other kind of stragglers, like you know, troublemaker kids. Yeah. We kind of like congregated together, and like that's where we started experimenting. You know, like, you know, smoking my mom's butts. I was stealing my mom's cigarettes. She caught me, so she made me smoke a whole. Well, she tried to get me to smoke a whole pack of cigarettes. I've never been sicker in my life, man. But it didn't stop me from smoking. That was a bad punishment method there.
Next thing you know, you're addicted to nicotine. You got these cravings, you don't know why.
Yeah, really. So we'd be ripping butts, drinking. One thing I did notice too is with like a stimulant-based medication, like I could drink more than everybody else. So like that kind of became like a claim to fame, you know. So like hence starts my kind of like illegal behavior, you know, troublesome behavior as a kid, and then I got introduced to marijuana.
For context now, roughly what age is this now marijuana comes into the scene?
Oh man, 12 or 13.
Okay.
Right? And
so, all right, so 12 or 13, you're still in Hamilton, Mass at this time?
Yeah.
What are you doing as far as sports? Is that anything that you're doing maybe with school, after school?
I stopped. I started working young. Like my mom like really encouraged me to work. I don't like authority. I never liked authority. You know, I didn't trust authority because like they pretty much told me like, you know, I'm mentally disabled and you can't be there, it's your problem. So I just avoided it on all levels. Like, you know, I kind of did my own thing. So I played sports when I was young, and then I stopped when I was like around 11, 12 years old, but I would work. The first job I had was with a landscaper, like locally, and I just kind of was working for him. He was paying me. Like one of the big lessons, you know, and I don't think it was the best, was I remember one year my mom asked me, no, I asked her, I was like, you know, like, oh, like, I need to get some school clothes. And she's like, wait, you got a job? She's like, go buy your own clothes. Wow. So then I was like, oh shit, like, you know what I mean? Like, I got to take care of myself now, like, you know, and then that's when I really started to kind of like, you know, hustling and shit like that.
So you start hustling as far as what? How does it start? Just selling weed to smoke weed? Or what do you mean by hustling? Just legal hustles, or I guess kind of tell me what you mean by that.
The hustling started like we'd sell cigarettes, we'd sell alcohol if we get our hands on it. We'd sell anything we get our hands on. Then like we all started smoking marijuana. Mm-hmm. I love marijuana because it made me feel good, you know, and I wasn't used to feeling good. I felt like shit all the time. So, you know, then when I realized like, all right, I got to take care of myself, you know, I started hustling marijuana. And like that's where like money started coming in. I was young. I was like 13 when I started hustling marijuana.
So, I mean, that's also another thing too, especially maybe growing up poor and not always having money. When you start getting your hands on money, that could become an addiction in itself. Is that something that you feel like was part of like what was going on with you? Did you start getting addicted to having money, and then, you know, you're selling thing that comes with like a status symbol of maybe being that dude, you know what I mean? Or like popular, or like, what do you think was going on there?
Yeah, because, you know, I was a chubby kid. I want to say like I'm a softer kid, but like I've always just been a kind-hearted person, right? So like it was hard for me to make friends. So yeah, like it made me feel connected. Like I felt, you know, and then if I'm selling weed, then I feel that like, you know, people would like me, like be my friend. So it was a way to kind of like, you know, make friends, but it was also a means of survival, because like if I can make money and I don't have to rely on other people, like I'm safe. You know, like that was the shit I used to do. I'd just try to get out of the house as much as I could. I'd just go to my friend's house. Like their parents love me. They keep me for dinner. I didn't want to go home. I don't, you know, I wanted to have, you know, be self-sufficient. You know what I mean?
Okay. And what was the age difference between you and your sister? And was your sister, did she stay with your mom with y'all? And like, did you guys have same friend groups? Or like, I guess kind of break that down. I'm not sure if you'd already said the age difference, but I guess, you know, tell me Talk a little bit about that. What was going on while you're doing that? Where is she? Is she just kind of amongst the same age group, or is she where your dad?
We both lived with my mother. My sister was 2 years younger than me, just about, almost. She had her own friends during that period of time. Obviously, like, we kind of would cross-pollinate friends and things here and there. But my sister was, better looking than me, smarter than me, like she had it going on, and she was well behaved, right? She didn't have no ADHD, you know what I mean? She got the luck of the genetics on that front, so. But like we were always tight, and like we went through a lot of shit together, so we loved each other, like we had a lot of respect for each other. So yeah, and she was doing good. Like she always did good in school, always A's, like always popular.
Yeah. And they say too, females tend to mature a little faster too than us, dumb guys. But was it something that at that time that she had started to notice? Maybe you kind of going astray, quote unquote, or it seemed like she might have had her head on her shoulders a little bit to it. But did she ever try to give you advice at that time or anything like that? Or was that not till later maybe that she kind of recognized this is going a certain way?
So like when we started, like I was getting into my teens and stuff, like she started to bring like wisdom to the table, but even her, like she couldn't stop me from going where I was going, because I just had like this hyper independent mindset I was just always kicked into survival mode. Like I moved out of the house. Like at 13, I moved in with like my father, got kicked out of there. I moved in with a buddy of mine and his mother because I had nowhere else to go. I lived there for like a year. So like I was bouncing around. That's when the skill of like hustling weed, getting money how I can get it, like became like a necessity for me, right? Like it became a way of life. It just got ingrained in my mind at that point. It was like when I was 15, I moved in with my father, and like he would dole out no discipline on me. Whereas like everywhere else I went, like with my stepmother and people, like they would dole out some form of, punishment and discipline and try to direct me. So like when I moved in with my father in Danvers, I was living with him in Danvers on the North Shore.
Just, I guess, I'm a little familiar with the North Shore, but how many towns away, how far is this from Hamilton? You know what I mean? Like, I guess kind of.
They're close. All these towns up on the North Shore, man, they're tight. Like there's just it's not like the South Shore, man, where it's like it takes you 2 hours to get to like a couple towns over.
Okay, so you're not too far away.
Yeah,
15, 20 minutes maybe. Okay.
Yeah, everything was close. There's a lot of stories in there. I'm not gonna take too much time with that, but like, yeah, like my father, had his struggles with, my stepmother, and like they ended up getting divorced. And, like that's when I was living outside the house with a friend of mine and his mother who took me in. And like that woman, Cindy, my friend's mother, she was like a saint. Like she was like, she really like was very loving towards me and treated me with respect. And I did a lot of stuff for the house. Her son, John, was like a giant child. So like I kept him in line. Nice. That was a positive kind of experience for me. Growing up, is because I never really felt that connection with my own mother, so that was helpful. And when my father got divorced, he got an apartment and I moved in with him. And he was pretty much like, son, like, I'm glad you're here. This is our bachelor pad, I'm not gonna bust your balls. I want you to grow and like learn your own lessons. Probably like the worst, like the one thing I didn't need, you know what I mean?
Leave these life-changing decisions up to a child or whatever, preteen, I guess. So you said you're about 15 at this time. Now, what's the school situation like? Are you, you're close, but do you have to go to a different school? Are you in high school? What's going on as far as that at this time? So I was going to a vocational school, like, out of like middle school, whatever. I went to this vocational school, which served me because I could get there from like, from my stepmother's house, and then I was able to get there from my friend's house, because that's how I knew him, is from this vocational school. But then I switched schools to the school in Danvers. And I think like geographically and socially, like that was kind of like a, something that triggered like some of my bad behavior in a sense, because Danvers is like a huge, I don't want to say metropolitan, but like it had like a lot of residential area. So the school was big. The high school was a big school with a lot of kids. So for me, like that was like a perfect breeding ground for like drug dealing and the things that I'd already been into. So like when I moved in with my father with no rules, like that's what I went wild. It was back in the 90s, like during like the rave time, like all the like the designer synthetic drugs came out, like ecstasy and acid, and so like that was just like a non-stop drug fest for me. Like not only using all the drugs, I was selling a lot of the drugs as well to make money. So at school.
at school, anywhere, you know,
okay.
like I just
24/7.
really, yeah, because like, you know, once I was being successful, people would rally around me, so like I could pretty much get whatever I wanted.
Now, what about the legal job? Is this something that you maintained the whole time, or were you making too much money and then between that and school? Because you said you had started working pretty young, but now, you know, you're not with your mom, you were dad, maybe a little bit more free reign, a little bit more ability to make your own choices and not feel like you have to work. So was that a thing at this time, or you just were done with it?
So that's a good question, right? For the most part, yes. But like when I was in my, you know, from 15 up until like 19 or whatever, within that time span, I'd get in like little bits of trouble for like drug related stuff. Like I was institutionalized twice for, I took too much acid a few times, like had bad trips and bugged out, and I got arrested for it. And like, it was like, I got put in mental hospitals for that.
I mean, do you remember much of like that bad trip? What
What
went on? Because
you can't see nothing. Like everything is just like colors and lights. Like I couldn't, and I was just like out of my mind. Like the voices, and it was like psychosis, like full blown psychosis. And I got arrested 2 times for that. And they put me in psych hospitals for that. So then I would get out and be like, all right, I'm not gonna mess around with these drugs. Maybe I'll smoke a little weed.
Right.
And I get a job, like, you know, and then like I started hustling again, and I got popped with some mushrooms and some marijuana one time, and then like I, you know, got in court issues. They never really imprison kids; they just give you probation. So I'd be on probation, so I'd start working, you know, and then I'd get off probation, and then I'd start hustling again. So I did work a little bit, but yeah, like the majority of that time was hustling.
So when you were getting, you know, arrested, and you talking about the probation, this was juvenile probation, and was it one of those things where you eventually end up getting committed, right? Do you remember the terminology?
I didn't get committed. It wasn't so much getting committed of like evaluations. Okay. Because they were like, yeah, like why were you, you know, running around the streets is psychotic. Right. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. And they're like, all right. So the judge is like, all right, you're going for an evaluation. And then I was like, all right, I ate a bunch of acid, Your Honor. You know what I mean? After or when I was in there, I remember I told the doctors, I think it was after a week or so, they were like, yeah, you said you didn't do any drugs. I was like, yeah, doc, I used some drugs. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I told on myself. So yeah, that's what it was.
So it was never no juvenile time or anything like that, having to do none of those facilities and.
Oh no, we actually one time, it was towards the end of my, you know, like when I was like 18, like right before I became an adult, I ate a bunch of acid and I was breaking into houses in Salem, like, cause I couldn't see, like, cause like the houses looked similar, cause I was at my buddy's house and I like left and I couldn't see and I was walking the streets. So I'm walking in, cause I thought that there was my friend's house, cause I couldn't really see, cause of like all the lights and, you know, trails and stuff and hallucinations. And I ended up in a guy's house. And it was like around Halloween, and it was like one of those toys that makes noise. When you sit, it was like
I hate those things, toys with noise.
Toys with
Kids
noise.
and dogs always got them.
So I don't know. Like for all I know, I was having conversations with my friends, and like this thing's going off. Sitting on the guy's couch, and the guy come out. You know, he gave me a pretty harsh beating, kicked me down a flight of stairs, and then the cops found me, and then they beat me up, and I broke a sign. So like I got some pretty like serious charges for that. Even though I was under the influence of drugs, you know, like that's how they look at it criminally. They're like, all right, well, you know, you had conscious will when you took the drugs, so everything that happens afterwards is your fault. You know?
Yeah, it can't. Yeah, I mean, it can't be a get out of jail free card. Oh, you're on, like maybe not drunk. I was drunk. You're on. Like that's not an excuse. That's not gonna cut it. It's not gonna fly if you're in a relationship with a woman and you cheat on her and you say I was drunk. You know what I mean? Like. So they did lock you up for a little bit. What'd they do? Hold you for a week or two, or just kind of like
They gave me an option, right? Like I did the psych eval on that one, and then I admitted to the acid use. And then the judge was like, all right, you got a choice. He's like, you either do a year in prison or you got to go into treatment. So I went into treatment. So they sent me over to Tewksbury, to the old tuberculosis ward on like the Tewksbury Hospital. You know, there was a bunch of us. Like I saw a kid that I used to know from Danvers, and he was in the game. You know what I mean? We were in there together. You know, eating like ramen noodle soups and shit. You know, so that sucked. That was like, man, that was like a 5-month stint. And then I was waiting so long to get to a halfway house that I finally just left. And my father was a cab driver at the time. He knew a woman at this halfway house, and she ended up getting me in there right away. Like, so luckily I was able to get in the halfway house. So I was there for like an hour. So I was like 10 months of like treatment, but I had no intention of changing my ways when I was that age.
So is this, at this point too, you're talking about, you know, the shrooms and all that. Are you drinking as well? Is this mixed with alcohol? Was that not part of it at all?
I drank. Alcohol never really was my thing, and I didn't drink regularly, but I was more drugs, but not like hard drugs, like stuff, you know, like cocaine and heroin, or like even pharmaceuticals. Like, we really didn't get into any of that, you know? It was more like ecstasy, marijuana, LSD.
So this whole time you're getting your meds, you're getting the Addies, is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah.
And okay, just curious, are you taking these as prescribed, like popping them, or are you crushing them up and taking them that way through your nose, or like, I guess, are you doing those the way you're supposed to throughout this whole thing, or is it kind of one of those deals where maybe you just take a bunch for a week, sell half of, you know how it goes, man? I guess kind of talk me through like that relationship with these meds that when you first started taking them, it actually worked for you. So I guess talk about that.
The Adderall always worked for me. I'm not gonna say that like I didn't abuse the drug occasionally when I was younger. For the most part, I just took it as prescribed. Like, it was something that was very beneficial to me. Yeah, like the issue wasn't there with that. Like, I wasn't, never addicted to that or anything. Like, it was super helpful for me. But yeah, like the drugs that we would get our hands on, like the powerful psychedelics and like the marijuana, like I was big onto that. Ecstasy was one of my favorites. Yeah. And then there was all other weird drugs back then, like GHB, like they kept coming out with like ketamine, you know what I mean? We were getting like the
Special
little,
K
with like like the horse and the cow and shit on it, like the
I don't even think I've ever seen it, to be. I've only heard stories, but I didn't get too deep into all that. So talk to me about now, okay, high school years, man. Are you getting in trouble, drug-related stuff? Are you getting suspended or anything like that? And do you end up finishing and getting your high school diploma, or how does that go?
Well, like the sad thing about that is, like, I dropped out my senior year just because I was just so drug involved at that point. And my father actually, encouraged me to get my GED, so I just signed up for it and I went and I took it and I did well on it. Yeah. So like I got the GED pretty quickly. Okay. And then like I was just like, I think like where like the shift happened during that time is because I don't remember who was it, man? It was like one of my buddies or something. I was sitting on my couch like selling pounds of weed, probably overweight, unhealthy, look like shit. And like I don't know, it was like 18 or something, 19. My buddy came over and he was like, "Hey, listen, man," he's like, "Were you just gonna like, is this gonna be you for the rest of your life? Like a fat asshole sitting on the couch fucking selling fucking weed to like all the fucking neighborhood fucking people or whatnot?"
Hey, sometimes we need that, man. Nowadays that would be like totally offensive, and you can't even say that to someone you love. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but we need that tough love. We need people to say that sometimes.
So he said that to me, and then I'm like, well, like that, and I'm like, no, like I don't want that to be my life. I thought about it, right?
Just my weekend, man. Next week.
When I was like 16, I was spending time in Gloucester with a friend of mine. I worked on a fishing boat for like a month or whatever, and I ended up missing a day, and the guy fired me. But I was making $150 a day, and I was like, fuck, that was good money. I was like, I love the ocean, right? I like, I love nature. I was like, why don't I fucking be a fisherman? Mm-hmm. So I went back to Gloucester, started looking for a job. Nobody would fucking hire me because I looked like because I'm like a young looking person, like yourself, like, so imagine when I was young,
you look even
like, we're not hiring this kid, this Irish guy, he's from Ireland, he ended up hiring me, and it was literally like this fucking 100-year-old boat. It's called an Eastern rig because like the fucking wheelhouse is in like the front instead of the back, and it was like all made out of like white oak, like this old ancient wood. And it just looked, it stunk, and it looked like a fucking scow. It was a piece of shit boat. He gave me a job, catching slime eels, like these nasty things that live at the bottom of the ocean. But, I was like, fuck, this is cool. I'll do this. This is, I'm like, a profession,
Right.
an adventure, like I love shit like that. So I started working on fishing boats when I was like 19 years old, full time.
So walk me through how that works. Is that something where you're off to sea for like a week at a time, or is this you just go out, come back for the day? How does it work?
So we would go out for like 3 to 4 day trips usually, and like you have these barrels and they have cones in them, and it's just like this whole process with like They used C-links, like, so like the barrels would have a C-link and rope on them, and you clip it into the line and it just goes shoop, shoop, and you shoot out these strings of gear. And like, yeah, so like that helped me, like, cause like now I'm getting physically fit, you know, I'm like, I feel connected to something, you know, I'm learning how the boats work, and, you know, meeting all these captains and people from Ireland, and, you know, it became an interesting scene out there. So like I really immersed myself in that. So like the drug stuff kind of like started to recede, and I'm making money, and yeah, and right around that time too, like I ended up meeting this girl. I'd been living in Salem with a friend of mine. Her name was Maria, and she was the sweetest thing ever. So her and I fell in love, you know, and like, so like I had that going for me. Like she was a really good girl. Yeah. So things were going better.
Okay. So then, okay, what's next then? What's next after?
Yeah, because you know, that's not the end of the story. That ain't the end of the story.
I take it not. So what's next? You're working, you got a girl, you're falling in love. You know, the drug thing is being less and less of a thing. Maybe not gone completely, but I mean, so what happens? Does it start to spiral a certain way?
I'm going to tell you what happened, right? And I'll give you a little quick side story, right? So I love this girl to death. She just was like a very homebody, and like I used to have to like, her room was on the basement floor, so I used to have to like sneak in her window to sleep over her house. She had a beautiful room, like her family had a nice house, which I didn't like because I wanted her spending more time. She didn't like being out of her element, so I used to struggle with that a lot. It was manageable. I remember one time I was in her bed, and like her father was doing some shit downstairs, like a reno or something. And she's like, oh shit, like my dad's down here. She's like, you just hide. So like I hid like on like, I'm like, I think I was naked. I'm like hiding on the side of the bed, right? And he's coming in the room, right? And I'm looking from under the bed, and I see like he was a short man of short stature, and I could see his little boots. And I'm like, oh shit, like this motherfucker's gonna catch me. And he like literally walked over here. He couldn't see me, and then like he walked out, thank God, you know. Oh my God. So like it was kind of like a strange situation. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, how old are you at that time too? Because I feel like at some point I'm like, man, I'm a grown man. I ain't hiding from nobody. But I mean, I think you're still relatively young at that time.
I was like 20. I was like 20. Yeah, I was like 20 years old. You know what I mean,
plus it's, you know, her house. You don't want to be confrontational, but it's just like you must have been sitting under there like, what did I get myself into? How did I get myself in these situations? Like,
that's a fear you feel like in like the pit of your stomach.
Right, like you're not like probably like say small dude, you're not scared physically of it, but it's like you don't want to get caught, you don't want to get nobody in trouble too, and here you are under
and I'm
the bed
embarrassed.
hiding.
I'm embarrassed too because like, you know what I mean, because I'm bare ass. You know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah. So
that's a funny story.
Yeah, but like, you know, like there were some issues in that relationship between her and I, but I was still strong with it. I was like, you know, I'm still gonna marry this girl. You know, I felt good about it. My life was going good, like real good at that time. And like, this is what shifted, right? Because like that was kind of like the question, like what happened? So I was 21 years old. My sister was 18, and she had come into her own problem. Like the question you asked about, like her intermingling with my friend group. So that happened as she got aged. You know, she ended up dating a guy that I had kind of like was in our circle, right? And he was a real problem guy. You know, he ended up going to Florida. He was like one of the first people to capitalize off of like the pill mills down in Florida. So he was getting all the oxys and he was shipping them up here. And like he had tons of money, and she liked this guy a lot. So she would go down to Florida, and she was with him down there. They were fighting. She came back. She was living with my father. I'd been living with friends. She was in kind of a recovery. My sister was kind of like, I was doing good. She was kind of in a recovery situation. And then she decided to go back down there. So she stole my father's credit card, ordered plane tickets, went down. They were fighting, like, because she had been talking to some other dude down there. He was like a wakeboarder. Like, that was like a cool sport they did down there. He must have been jealous. They were fighting over that from what I've heard. Because like, I had friends that were living down there too, and they've told me various stories about what happened. The story goes is he gave her a whole handful of pills. God only knows what it was. According to what someone told me, a friend of mine is like, you know, like, well, like, this is what you really want. Like, why don't you fucking take this and get the fuck out of here, and maybe I hope you die or whatever. Okay. So she went out that night. She was 18. I was 20 at the time. She ate the pills and went out drinking and partying with one of her girlfriends, from what I hear. And then she like somehow made her way back to her girlfriend's house. She laid down on the couch and she just never woke up. She overdosed. Wow. And like what makes it worse was it was like during the winter time, and I was on a fishing boat with some asshole captain that tried to hook up with my girlfriend after the fact. Well, before the fact, but then after the fact. He was a scumbag. And like it was a hard boat, and I had like pneumonia, man. So the Coast Guard calls the boat, right? To tell them like, hey, like, is Marshall on this boat, Marshall Lane, because one of his family member died. Wow. Because it's the wintertime and these guys want to make money, and I'm sick, because the type of person I am, I'm like, listen, guys, you don't have to turn the boat around. Like, let's finish fishing so you can make money for your families.
Yeah.
So I get off that boat and I'm like, jaundiced because I'm so sick. I can barely breathe. And my girlfriend came to pick me up. And when she picks me up, I asked her, I said, who in my family died? And she's like, I don't want to tell you. I was like, I'm going to find out. You have to tell me. She's like, your sister's dead. Damn. So I was like, are you fucking serious? And I was like, well, I need to go to a hospital because it's hard to breathe. So I had to go into the hospital. They had to like clear my lungs out. Like it was a big thing. And then, they released me a couple days later or whatever. And then I had to go to my mother's house, and I had to deal with this shit. Damn. So that was what really set me off, because like my mind wasn't ready to accept that like somebody so close to me, somebody I cherish so much, like my biological sister was gone. Like someone I had planned my whole, because that's what my brain does. Like I like to plan shit out, like my whole life, like her family, my family, like, she's gone now.
Right,
like,
and then a 2-year difference that's similar to my little brother. I don't remember him not being there, you know what I mean? Like before you're 2, you don't really remember much, so I'm sure she was always there, and then to have that happen must have been horrific, and my condolences, man. How, so sometimes I look like my situation, I tend to internalize a lot of things, and being the big brother and kind of being real protective of my brother, and then hearing he had got locked up for murder and everything like that, and it was just like, I always felt like guilt associated with that. Like, man, if I joined the military or tried to go to college, maybe he would have followed me that way instead of the streets. So the fact that your sister was hanging out with like your friends, and was that something that you dealt with too at that time? Did you start to feel guilty, thinking it was your fault maybe, or what you could have did differently? And like, I guess how does one address that?
Yeah, so like, there's always survivor guilt, right? Like, and yeah, like I had a lot of guilt, right? Like because we weren't doing that back then. Like we weren't doing those pills, we weren't doing cocaine. It still really hadn't come into the scene and come into play for us. So it was a shocker for me. Yeah. But I did feel guilty, and like, and there's still, there's guilt been put on me for it, and like,
from others.
Yeah, like I'm not during that time, not like directly, but like it's been insinuated, and like, yeah, so like even there was a lot of guilt, and then there was like, even to this day, I feel guilt, like, and shame, like, there's parts of me that are probably propelled by like these feelings of guilt and shame from my past behavior. There is no excuse, right? The only thing I could think of as an excuse for my behavior is I thought I was doing something that was making me feel good and helping me not suffer. Yeah. But it made everything worse, right? Like the worst of the worst things came about my behavior, but I had to learn that. Like I hadn't learned it at that point. Right. And because I did not understand how to process that, instead I gave up. I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, no matter what you do, like, people around you are gonna die. You're gonna die. I was like, the things that bring me joy is just going hard. I was like, I'm gonna go hard, and I don't care. That's how I dealt with that situation.
Trying to numb the pain is all it's doing. It's temporarily numbing it. It's not addressing it at all. It's just delaying your pain, and
the inevitable. Delaying the inevitable.
Yeah. So you start spiraling. Now, I guess, is this what leads up to you start getting into trouble with the law? Is that what happens not too long after this, or is that a gradual thing, or what eventually leads up from there to you getting locked up, getting in trouble with the law eventually?
I'll give you the kind of like the quick version. So when my sister died, right, I'd asked Maria to kind of like, I gave her 2 weeks. I'm like, Maria, give me 2 weeks. I need you with me. Like, she don't want to be at home. I'm like, you got to start staying with me at my place. I need you with me, because I don't know how to do this by myself. Yeah. And like one weekend, she's like, I'm gonna go hang out with Kendi. We're going out drinking. I said, yeah, just come here afterwards. She got shit-faced drunk, and like she's like, I'm not bringing Maria there. I had an emotional breakdown. I had been drinking a ton, right? So then like that was just a big thing. Like I went out and like I jumped off a cliff and like, cause it probably wasn't a hike. I don't remember. I was so drunk and I like landed on my face and was in the hospital.
Was this just like a drunken accident, or was this like a thing that was like a mental health thing?
It was a mental health thing. Like I don't think I was really trying to commit suicide, cause like, you know, I
But
think
like
if
you
I
didn't care if you,
yeah,
know, if
maybe
went that way.
maybe it was like a little bit of both. Maybe it was
Cry
like
for attention, too.
cry for attention. Like I'll admit it. You know what I mean? I was being an emotional mess at the time, rightfully so. But I held a resentment towards her for that. So you know, like I just sabotaged the relationship. You know, like I hurt her. I was going out partying, and you know, I started doing things like, you know, that I wouldn't have normally done because I really did love her, and I just didn't. You know, that was me acting out. So you know, we ended up breaking up, and it was very hurtful for her, and I just didn't process it because I was just doing whatever I wanted. And that's when I got introduced to like hard drugs, because I was going to bars, because I'm like, what, 21? I was like 20, 21, we're out drinking. Yeah. Everyone was going in the bathroom, right? And doing lines and things, right? So on my curiosity, I'm going in there. There's girls, there's guys in there. So like I did some cocaine. I fucking hated it, right? Like it's not for me. I don't like cocaine. I don't like crack. Like I'll never be addicted to it. Like never once have I ever like had a hankering for cocaine or stimulants. So, like the only time I think with like the coke is when I'm mixing it with opiates, right? But I'm gonna get to that. So I started hustling weed again, right? Because I'm trying to stack paper. My old mindset's coming in because there's no more Maria to keep me balanced. So you know, and I'm stacking paper, and then I remember one of my friends was like, yo, like, listen, you always get weed, like, can you get some fucking cocaine? And I was like, yo, let me just check my Dominican drug dealer over in Lennon. And so I asked him, I'm like, hey, can you get me some cocaine? He was like, yeah, no problem, Poppy, I got you, you know, no big deal. So I got an 8-ball, I flipped that, right, quick, and I made fast money. Wow. And like marijuana, you can end up sitting on it, you know what I mean? It doesn't fly out the door.
It gets stale.
Yeah, and you get the dirt weed and shit, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I just started, you know, hustling coke, because in my brain, in my foolish brain, I'm like, all right, it's smaller, more compact. People constantly buy it. I'm not.
Doesn't smell as strong.
Yeah, you know,
like, in a duffel bag. I mean, yeah, obviously if you're sniffing it, but I got you.
So it was just like it was like a no-brainer. So like I started hustling cocaine. And then one of my buddies, he was getting like the Vicodins and getting the big bottles, because like opiates were just falling off of trucks in them days, right? From the pharmaceutical companies. So I fell in love with that drug. I fell in love with Vicodin 10 milligrams, the blueberries they called them, because it gave me that feeling that I always wanted, right? Got rid of all the pain, made me feel like I was 10 feet tall, like I could conquer the world. You know, then it went to the oxys. I got addicted to oxys for a while. And then I was just hustling, and I was feeding that addiction. So it was like I'm selling cocaine, doing opiates, right? Living a very fast life. And I thought that it was like the bee's knees. And I knew, like, on some level, I knew that it was gonna come to when I used to convince myself when I was like, because I'd hide the drugs, I had these like hide spots in my car, in my Camaro. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a little bit of coke. You know, worst case scenario, I'll get a couple years. So fast forward, right? They changed the oxys, right? Because I always told myself I'll never do heroin, right? Like I tell myself things like I'll never sell crystal, I'll never fuck with crystal meth, I'll never do heroin, right? They put gelatin in the oxys, right? And I couldn't get the drug in me. Like the gelatin, right? It was a time release. So there's like a side story, because a buddy of mine, he was a fisherman. He got like he came to my house, used to buy coke off me. He had stage 4 lung cancer, and his wife worked for a pharmaceutical company, so she had great insurance. So they were just dumping opiates on this guy. So I'm trading him cocaine, right? He would sit in the basement and smoke crack because he's dying. And he's giving me these pills, all of his pills. Like, so I was just like hyperdosing on opiates. But then they put the gelatin in them, and I got real sick. And I remember it. I had thought to myself, like, I'm just gonna have to rough through this. But I went to a buddy of mine's wedding, and then his cousin was there, and he was a heroin addict, and he bust out a line of heroin, and because he knew I was sick, like, you know, I probably told him, but he could tell, like, I was dope sick. And I'm like, oh, is that heroin? And I was like, no, I don't do that. And he's like, no, man. He's like, listen, he's like, this is like real pure, it's real good. He's like, listen, he's like, you'll be fine. He's like, it's great, whatever. He convinced me, right? Wow. So I blew a line of heroin, and then I was angry at myself because for what I was missing. I was like, why the fuck didn't I do this sooner?
Right, wow.
So then I went to my dealer, and I started picking up fingers of heroin. So like I became a full-blown heroin addict, and I was just moving so many drugs at that point. I was just had my hands in so much shit that I ended up, not only were we messing with the cocaine in some pretty like large quantities, but I concocted a scheme through that same fishing buddy that was dying, because he had a connect out west that, you know, was pretty big, and he would send shit over in like car carriers and shit. So he had been sending cocaine out to me, because like it was a little bit of a drought back then. I was like 2006, 2007. And then one of my other dealers, local dealers in Lynn, I put him onto it so that we could buy in more bulk. And that, you know, he ended up ordering like a bunch of crystal meth and black tar heroin. You know, like that's how I ended up getting busted, is because I had a friend of mine, a girl that we've been hustling on, off and on, been friends forever. She used to do work for me, and you know, when this whole crystal meth thing happened, the kid that had ordered it, my friend, because I remember I was trying to get right. I was like trying to get off. I went on a long fishing trip, so I let her kind of handle some shit. You know, when I came back to the house, like there was just this big old there's just a big old pile of black tar heroin and crystal meth. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why do we got this here? And she's like, oh, so and so ordered it. And I'm like, well, why don't they come get it? Like, tell them to come take it away out of here. And they're like, well, now they don't want it because they say it's too much. So he was trying to, because it got shipped all the way out, he was trying to get the kid, this Mexican kid to
He's like, no refunds, buddy.
Yeah, to come off, you know, come off the price. So this is me. I'm like, no, you know what? I'll handle this. I'll fix it, right? And what I didn't know is she had been going out. She met some dude at a bar, and he was a fucking confidential informant. He'd been ratting on us. So her and I ended up getting snitched out. You know what I mean? She called me to the house one day, get out of my car. I had like local drug task force, federal agents pointing guns at my head. Oh my God. You know, it was a big, you know, it wasn't a big indictment. It was just her and I were on the indictment, but it was like big trouble. Like I knew I was like, when that happened, I knew I was in trouble. Like,
I mean, what's that feeling like of having all these like guns pointed at you and all that stuff? I think I had one incident like that, but it was a blackout drunk situation. I don't even like really remember, but like, what was that feeling like, having all these guns drawn on you? Were you ever like in fear that they were gonna shoot you or something, or did you just kind of know like, all right, here it is, like I'm getting arrested? Did you like trust them to not shoot you? 'Cause things happen. I don't know. You sneeze, you know what I mean? They might blow your head off. So, I mean, just talk about like, what's that feeling like? I mean, was it scary?
So it happened to me twice. I'll tell you both times. So that first time, right, like I knew it was cops, so like I knew I was in trouble, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, well, you know what I mean? I knew what to do, because I've been in trouble before, like, you know. Yeah. And then they just, you know, I mean, the DE agent put me to the side or whatever, you know. He's trying to get me to talk. I was like, no, I need to talk to a lawyer, right? And he was like, and he walked away, you know what I mean? So, you know, she was getting busted in the house, so we got busted. But I was sick, because it didn't really dawn on me like how much trouble I was in, because in my mind I'm still like, oh, I can like weasel my way around this, like I can figure, you know, because I've always been good at like getting myself out of shit. Right. I didn't understand, you know, but
so what you said, that was there was two times. What was the other time? I guess real quick, side story, what happened?
So the other time was, so I get indicted, right? You know what I mean? At first I was in county. They you know, they let me out on bond. Right, then the feds picked it up, and then I was able to get out on bond on like a third-party custodial, live with my family, get babysitted with a bracelet monitor.
So do you remember where you were at, when you got bonded out? Are you already like in the jail or the holding, or you get bonded out from the police station?
Well, like the holdings were like, so like, you know, I was in a state holding for like 5 months. So I went into like a few little holdings, but the county holding they didn't hold me long. Like they let me out of Brad Street or something, you know what I mean? Like they just like let me out. Then when the feds picked it up, I was in holding for like 5 months, but then I got bonded out and I got to go stay with my family. Okay, right?
So I guess talk to me a little bit about how it works when the feds pick it up, right? Is this something that you get in the mail? You just got to go to court one day? I mean, because if you say they picked it up, it means that they didn't have it the whole time. Yeah,
that's a good point, right? Because a lot of people don't know this. It's what's called superseding indictments, right? So you got county, state, and federal jurisdictions, right? So a state can supersede county, feds can supersede everybody. Mm-hmm. So the way that the feds did it with me is I was in county, they bonded me out, and I was like, I'd convinced myself that I wasn't going to get, indicted by the state or the feds because I'm stupid. The feds came knocking at the door. They've been clocking me. They came to my new apartment in Gloucester, literally knocked on my door, and were like, yeah, Marshall Lane, like, you're coming with us. Handcuffed me. Then they took me in, superseding indictment. You get this big old package, United States versus Marshall Lane, distribution, methamphetamine, heroin, all the drugs and things, and they just really like parcel it out, and it's like they're there to crush you. I think it was like 12 counts of like drug dealing. So it's like if one doesn't stick, all the others, like you ain't getting away. Like when you're in the feds, like if you get indicted by the feds, you're fucked.
So is that the point where you're like, okay, maybe I can't weasel my way out of this one? Shit just got real. The feds, United States first, Marshall Lane. You looking at that like, or is it still like, yeah, but.
No, I'm still dumb as shit. I'm still dumb as shit. So I saw that, and like I still was like hopeful that like I'd be able to like wiggle my way out of it. So they let me out. Like I get the bond, right? I have a really great judge. The guy's Judge Sorokin, very liberal guy, and he let me out. And I don't hold it against him for letting me out. Like he probably shouldn't have, but like he did the right thing. And I am accountable for my own actions. Like that's who I am today. I take full responsibility for what I do.
That's big.
I didn't back then. So I was living with my aunt and uncle for like 5 months, and I planned like this whole escape. Like I planned on like absconding, like cutting my bracelet off and bouncing. And I did. I took a plane out to California, was staying out with friends out there, had a fake identity. I was starting a whole new life, and I was like actually doing good. And I'm pretty sure I know who snitched me out, but that's the second time I had guns held in my head because I actually got pulled over out in California, and I didn't have my fake ID on me, and the cops pulled me over, and they fucking let me go.
Oh, damn.
That was a scary one. But yeah, so, I think my buddies, I can't say, someone within my circle out there got sick of me being around, because I can be a difficult person, especially like when I'm on the run, I'm stressed to the hills. Even planned on like.
And you're still using and everything at this point while you're running.
I was drinking like
everything?
Tecates and shit. Like I was living out in like Ontario, California.
Okay.
The Inland Empire area, kind of near Los Angeles. I wasn't really drunk. I maybe smoked some weed. I was getting ready to use opiates again. I remember because I actually found a plug out there, which is kind of sick. Because like that addiction reared its ugly head once again. Yeah, somebody snitched me out, and like I was in a car, and like we pulled up to the house. And as soon as I got out, like fucking cruisers pulled up all around me, and all the cops were on their knees, like, get on the ground, put your hands on your head. But at that time, because I was so fucking racked with nerves for being on the run, I was just like, there was like a feeling of relief too, because I was able to face, and then they shipped me back out to Massachusetts. I had to do like Con Air, and like there's like a holdover in Oklahoma. Damn. The food was actually pretty good there. They kept me there for a couple weeks.
That's not bad at least. So eventually, like, what happens? Do you end up taking a plea deal with this? Do you go to trial? I take it most people don't like to go to trial with the feds. Or did you go to trial? Talk to me about like what happens.
Oh man,
the disposition.
So what happened with that was and I had Paige Kelly was my lawyer. She's a magistrate now, and she's an amazing person, amazing lawyer. I'm blessed to have her, because if not, I would have been fucked. So, because she had known me, because I'd been working with her. She'd been my lawyer, and like when I'm sitting there, when they finally shipped me all the way back to Wyatt, down in Rhode Island, I'm sitting across. I'll never forget it. I'm sitting across the table, and she's looking at me, and she goes, "This isn't good." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I know it's not good. And she's like, well, like now, like, because your points shoot up. The feds will operate off. I got 5 points for absconding. Wow. So I was looking at a 10-year sentence. Like now my sentence is looking at like 20, 25 years.
Wow.
And she's like, listen, she's like, these are your options. She's like, either we go to trial, and by some miracle, because I'm fucking stone cold guilty, you win. She's like, or you just plea out to the charges, and like we can work with the prosecutor, work with the judge, and maybe just kind of get you like a sentence close to 10 years. And I said, yeah, I'll take the latter on that one, like, because I'm getting 30 years if I go to trial.
Yeah. And what age are you at this time to kind of context? I know math, right? Yeah, that's hard.
I'm like 27, like between 27, 28, I believe.
Okay.
Because I do remember that, right? So what happened was this, and because like legally I'll explain it to you, right? Because I ended up spending a lot of years like kind of back and forth, doing a little legal work here and there, and I had to learn my own case. I used to help guys too. So I pled out to all the charges, right? Like they wanted me to take them all. You know, my co-defendant, you know, she ended up getting like 2.5 years or 3 years or something. You know, she did whatever she did. I don't even know. But I had to take like the brunt of this case, right? So I did that. But she had talked to my prosecutor was Leah Foley, who is now the federal district attorney for like, you know, New England or Massachusetts or whatever. And she's vicious because she takes a lot of the drug cases, right? You know, you don't want Leah Foley as a prosecutor. So she had told, Paige asked her, she's like, yeah, like, what were you gonna ask? What are you thinking? So Leah Foley said like, oh, I think I'm just gonna ask for 11 years for him or whatever. So Paige came to me in the beginning and she's like, this is good. Like, you know, like you should plea out. Like we're gonna, you know, like this is great. And I'm like, awesome. Like, let's do this. So I pled out and it was like 2 weeks before sentencing. And I don't know if it's stuff that my co-defendant said. I'm pretty sure she said some pretty disclosed things that I probably had done that were illegal that never got in trouble for, that were probably bad, and like really painted a bad picture of me. And like Leah, I think, held that against me. So like 2 weeks before I'm getting sentenced, Paige asked Leah like, all right, we're going in there for the sentencing. Like we're still good on the 11 years. She's like, no, I'm gonna ask for a guideline sentence, which was 25 years.
Holy shit.
So Paige told me this and I was like, Paige, like, no, I can't go in there. Like, I'm not gonna go in there and get sentenced to 25 years. Like, you know what I mean? You hoodwinked me. You bamboozled me.
At this point, is it even an option to withdraw that plea? I don't know how the federal system works.
So that's a good question, because that's what I said. I said, I'm retracting my plea. I said, fuck that. I was like, no, because like I'm getting fucked no matter what. Like I freaked out. We're gonna get other lawyers, talking to my family. I was on that phone like every second, calling the public defender's office, calling my family, like bugging out. And what Paige did was pretty smart, right? And it saved many years of my life from what she told me. So she said that she called Carmen Ortiz, who was the district attorney for the feds at the time. And she's like, yo, you know, like I'm making up the rhetoric because I wasn't in the room. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not in the room.
What's it called? Paraphrasing.
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing here. I'm paraphrasing. So she's like, all right, Carmen, like, you know, your ADA lied to us. You know, like this kid went in there thinking he's going to be looking at 11 years. You're going to ask for 11, and here they are they're going to try to crush him with 25. So Carmen didn't like that, right? Because that's dirty. Yeah. So she ended up getting on a conference call. Paige calls in. You know, Leah Foley's in the office, and like the way she told me is like, you know, Leah was calling her, you know, every name in the book because she kind of snitched her out to her boss, you know. Mm-hmm. But Carmen was like, well, like, you know, like that's not right. So can we like could you ask for something more reasonable?
Yeah.
And Leah was like, all right, well, I'll ask for 14 years. And then Paige is like, we'll take it. You know what I mean? So she came to me with that. And she's like, this is what we're going to do. Like, you know, Leah says she's going to ask for 14. We're going to ask for 10. Hopefully the judge meets us in the middle. So I went in there on sentencing day, you know, like I spoke my piece, apologized, you know, and I really was like sorry. Like I was starting to be contrite, you know, although I still had resentments, but yeah, like I just felt terrible about what I'd become. I really had started that internal work at that time. The judge ended up kind of meeting in the middle and gave me 12 and a half with the feds. So I got a 12 and a half year sentence. And this was kind of funny because I saw Paige one more time after I got sentenced. They put you in like that little tiny room down there, like outside the bullpen. Okay. And she's like, she goes, yeah, she's like, I'm really glad that he gave you the 12 and a half years because he's really known to like go over what the prosecutor asked. She's like, I thought he was going to give you 15.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, well, thanks, Paige, you know, like, but yeah, so like I ended up getting 12 and a half years and I spent 11 years in the feds.
Okay, so I guess walk me through like what like joints are you at, right? How long, like through these 12 years, how many years do you spend? So like what's the next? You go to just from doing interviews at MDC Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And then like, I guess walk me through just where you were at and for how long until, you know what I mean, your eventual release. I mean, I know 14 years is a long time, but
there's so much time, man. So yeah, I did do MDC Brooklyn. I went through there a few times in my travels because like these are holding, like they're holdovers. Like they'll transfer you around. Like that's what the feds do. Yeah. Some people that they really don't like, they give them diesel therapy. I know you heard that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I did MDC Brooklyn. I was there on my transfer. So I was in Rhode Island. Once I get sentenced, right? They sentence you. And you go to get designated to a prison. So I was designated to Otisville. So they come get you over at Wyatt, and they sent me to MDC Brooklyn. So I was there, you're just there chilling for a couple weeks till they transfer you to your prison. I'll never forget this, like now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't think about this shit, Bobby. I don't. You're like, now that you're bringing me back. Like, I said I was gonna talk a lot, now I'm like thinking back. I remember one night, I'll never forget this shit. We're all sleeping, and it's like an open dorm with tons of people in there, right? This fucking guy was having night terrors, right? Because I could hear him screaming, right? And he must have farted or something, because it was the worst smell I've ever smelled, right? And like that, in that moment, like I like literally, that was like that was like the closest I've been to hell.
Yeah,
right? Because that was MDC, and it was weird. They played that movie. You ever seen that movie, The Human Centipede?
Oh, no, but I seen the South Park episode based on it, bro. Oh, it's disgusting.
Bro, they'd have like movie night. I went in one night. I'm like, oh shit, movie night. I'm going to hang out with the guys.
Traumatized.
It was The Human Centipede. Yeah. And like, I watched it. Yeah. And then afterwards, I'm like, what? Like, why the fuck did I just watch that? Like, it was horrible. So, like,
trauma,
sure. So MDC Brooklyn was a weird spot, man.
And then you get designated to Otisville. Is that what happens? How long are you at Otisville? I guess talk to me about that. Is that a dorm situation too, or do you get a cell?
No, you get cells, which I actually kind of like. I preferred. So Otisville, they have like, it's an older prison. It was built in like the 80s. It was like a transfer spot, and then they turned into a full prison. They still had the weight pile there. It's in upstate New York. Okay. It's near New York City, so it had like a lot of the wise guys and stuff, like the old mobsters and stuff there. It was a cool little spot. I was there for 3.5 years. I was a heavy reader. Like, I began to educate myself in prison. You know, I read fiction for like a year. I was in there, and then I got into like nonfiction and learning, and you know, I did that inner work, right? Yeah, like, you know, I really worked on myself. I liked it a lot.
What do you think it was? Was there a switch that flipped, or is it just now you're getting a little older, you're maturing? Is it the sobriety, the clear-mindedness, or is it just the realization of, wow, I could get myself in a lot of trouble. This is not the life I want to live? Was it a certain thing that switched the flip, or just a gradual change to do the self-work?
So that's a good question. Number one, I never wanted to be in that space again. Yeah. You know, like when they picked me up in California on the run, like I was laying in a holding cell somewhere on the floor, on a concrete floor, and I was like, I have to deal with this now. I'm grateful, like at least I can confront it. I'm like, but when it's over, I don't ever want to have to go through this again. Yeah. Right, so I'd convicted myself, and then like, you know, I figured like the only that's a stupid program they had, Gogi, getting out by going in, but I'm gonna quote it, like the only way that I could get out was by going inside myself, and to do that, like I needed to educate myself. I wanted to fix the broken things inside me so that I don't end up, you know, and like I read self-help books. I read like a lot of like anything philosophy, science fiction, psychology. You know, like I really like just would read book after book, because like, you know, I got ADHD, so the stimulation helped too, because otherwise like my mind's just spiraling, right? So it was like an anchor for me, as well as it was a way for me to, you know, gain knowledge and like go. It's an escape too.
I was just gonna say, even the nonfiction stuff. So Otisville, New York, for about 3 years, and then is this do you step down, or did you get in trouble? What's next after that? So I avoided trouble like the plague. Like I was a GED tutor in Otisville. I ended up meeting a college professor there, Professor Franca Ferrari. She worked at Queensborough Community College. I was actually, you know, toot my horn a little bit. I was a GED tutor in Concord myself. Yeah, nice. It was cool to give back though, man. I'm sitting there, like I'm like, and this time I'm young too. I'm like, man, I'm like a 22-year-old kid, and I'm sitting here teaching this 55-year-old gang banger, look like a straight killer about please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You know what I'm saying? It was a cool experience to look back.
Yeah, I remember I used to do the same shit. Yeah, PEMDAS. Yeah, cool, Order of Operations. Yeah, because you teach so much math, like because that's what nobody
fractions, all that stuff, common denominators and all that stuff. It was like a refresher for me too, though. You know what I mean? Because it'd been a while. But
Well, like, so my GED scores played because usually they make you retest, but like the head of education was like, oh, your GED scores are great. We'll just give you a job as a tutor. It was like one of the best paying jobs on the pound.
Awesome. You avoided trouble. What does this mean? You go to a low after the 3 years? What's next?
So like the way the feds work is like it's a point system. So I went in, I think I had like 14 or 15 points, but like over time, like your points will drop from good behavior. I had like old petty crimes, like I saw assault and battery on a police officer because he tried to take my beers and I like pushed him away. So like some dumb shit when I was like 18.
Yeah, that they try to make it out to like you try to kill him probably or something.
They hold it against you, but so your points will drop like after a crime's so old. So like I just like really behaved myself there. I was gonna say something funny too because I remember like when I was excited to teach people stuff, and I thought of myself as like a young Michelle Pfeiffer, you know, at like 29 years old and like Dangerous Minds. The chalkboard, you know.
That's funny as hell.
But yeah, like, you know, and I learned how to, you know, work with people and like work with how people think differently, right? You know, because you teach a lot of math too, and teaching people math that never learn math is hard. You know, it's difficult. So. Absolutely. Yeah, I just behaved myself. I ended up getting sponsored. Like I worked hard to try to, because there's no Pell Grant, so I wanted to do college stuff. You know, Professor Franca Ferrari, who was visiting the prison teaching communication, you know, she was doing it volunteer. She ended up sponsoring me, and I'd been working on like a math degree, but they wouldn't let me get a scientific calculator. I was going to do applied mathematics. And they're like, no, you could use that to like break out of the prison. And I'm like, well, I can't. How? You know, I was in like, you know, I was in calculus. I'm in calculus, and like one calculus problem was like a freaking stack of pages. I'm like, I can't do this out by hand. Like, you know, it's a great dream. So I ended up doing psychology. I ended up getting an associate's in psychology. I downstepped from there. Now, what was interesting about that prison is they brought all the gang dropouts in there. They swapped because like what was happening out west was they had all like people that drop out of gangs and they're green lighted on pounds, like which means like they're like people would hurt them or kill them or something. So they had them all in like the segregation, which is cruel and unusual punishment because you can't live in segregation for fucking 20-year bid. Right. So what they came up with this plan is they're like, all right, we're gonna ship all these gangbangers from out west and we're gonna bring them over to the on like the northern side, the East Coast or whatever. So like Otisville became a gang dropout joint. So they cleared out anybody with gang affiliations. I remember like the BOP, Bureau of Prisons people came in and they had all of us stripped down into our boxers, looking for gang tattoos, asking you questions like, oh hey, like how do you feel about gang dropouts? And it's like, oh no issues, you know, like, oh, how do you feel about pedophiles? I'm like, I don't know, I wouldn't bother them, you know, because like we were living good there, you know, they had weights and like they had, like I was comfortable.
Yeah, I got you.
And I'll never forget it, man. Like they cleared out like 200 or 300 people from the prison. It was like 900 or 1,000 people there, right? So it was just like there wasn't as many people. It was quiet. It was nice. Then the buses started coming.
Before you get into the buses coming, were there any Boston guys there?
Oh
any
yeah,
038 guys?
The Boston car, yeah.
Okay, so I guess talk to me about that. Was that a good feeling to know, like, you got guys from around home? Like when you say towns like friggin' Danvers and Peabody, they actually understand you, as opposed to speaking to someone in Florida is not gonna have no idea what you're even talking about. Like to have somebody that could relate to things at home, like you guys may be all rooting for the Pats or something. Was that cool?
Yeah, so like the car, they call them cars, right? Like the Boston car is a lifeline, right? Because it gives you a place where you can fit in. Like obviously, like they want you to have good paperwork, right? Like that was always a big issue. But like a lot of them guys, like I learned that coming to prison because you know I was like, oh yeah, like this will be great, you know, like I'm gonna, you know, like. People in prison are then in there for crimes, so like they've all done fucked up shit. A lot of them have snitched, like whatever. Like that was always it's like fucking, it was like high school on like methamphetamine and steroids. You know, like I was always uncomfortable because I don't.
With no women though.
With no women, you know, but there were, you know, guys that you know kind of
filled those needs,
filled those roles. Let's say there's a lot of roles in prison. You know what I mean? There's every role there. But so yeah, like I was enveloped by the Boston car. They were always real good to me, but I always kept to myself. I never really got too close in prison because I didn't want to have. I don't trust people in general, and it's not like I wasn't hustling while I was at that prison, anyways. I just was on my best behavior.
Just to cut you off real quick, just that BOP coming through, they're doing all this thing and looking at tattoos or nothing like that. They don't look at that like 038 thing as a gang, like or how was, I guess obviously not.
No, because everybody groups up like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like Rhode Island guys, Providence guys, Boston guys, maniacs.
Yep.
The main guys.
Yep, absolutely.
So no, they didn't look at it like that. But yeah, so like
Pretty easy stay. Otisville did the tutoring and thing.
Yeah,
right?
but I make friends where I make friends. You get friends on the unit. Like, so,
I mean, yeah, I take it you don't walk around like some big tough guy or anything like
you
that.
You can tell my friends,
Yeah.
I am, you know what I mean, like, I'm very reserved, you know, especially in like human relationships. So it's not like, that's me. But anyhow, the buses started coming. What was really strange, right, because I was in a medium, there wasn't a lot of sex offenders. Like, the feds have a lot of sex offenders because internet sex crimes and like internet crimes. Okay. So they have a good bulk of these folks, you know. I hadn't really seen a lot. Like, I'd seen them in like the holdings, but not like crazy. But these guys were coming on the pound, like they come marching in, like they do when a bus comes. They come onto the compound. You can see them because we're all on the compound. So like you'd see these dudes like Mexican Mafia, Black Hand, you know, like all these dudes ripped up, scars all over them. And then like there would be like this old guy like with a cane, like white guy like walking.
Right.
And we're like, wait a second, like that guy's not a gangbanger.
I hate to say it, they always do look the part.
No, and that's what it was, and that's what they were doing. So they turned it into a gang dropout spot, and then they were bringing in like. But if you're in a medium in the feds as a sex offender, like you're like, because they can't send them to the penitentiaries because they'll get killed. Right. So they were because it became a safe prison, a safe haven. They were bringing in like the worst imaginable sex offenders. Like, Jeez. It was so. I remember because like we ended up with like 100 of them, right, or maybe less, but there was a lot. And the guys would be in the law library looking up these guys' history, right? Like their criminal histories. And guys would, and I remember at first, like I fed into it. They're like, oh yeah, you see that guy over there? Like, goes paperwork. Like, look what he did and they did to these kids, right? And then I think it was like after like a couple times or whatever, guys would be like, oh yeah, you know what that guy? I'd be like, please, no, please, just don't tell me. Like, I don't even, like, I know he's a child molester. I know they call him child molester. I know he is. I just please don't tell me what he did. Right. Because I didn't even want to have to fucking think about it, you know?
Absolutely. Especially it seems like they're just telling you what he did. It doesn't seem like there's any motivation to like, all right, let's do something about this. It just seems like gossip.
They used to pick on them and tease them and steal their shit and harass them. But
make their life hell.
I get you. But yeah, it was just, you learn how to guard your mind in there. Like, that's what I started to learn, is how to guard my mind. And like that. The homies were good because they would antagonize me and push me and like try to like, you know, like that's what they do. And at first I thought that they were just busting my balls, but what they were trying to do was like teach me how to guard my mind and not be reactive towards things, like know how to react and like when to react and how to speak and when to speak. I got a lot of paternal influence going through those 11 years of federal prison that I didn't really have growing up. So that helped me mature, which is kind of fucked up to say. But
so what's the next stop? And then I guess talk to me about, you know, do you stay there the whole time? You stay out of trouble? You stay at, is it a low that you go to next? And
yeah, so I stayed there for 3.5 years. I had done like, you know, about 2 years, or 2 years pre-trial or whatever. And then Danbury opened. Like, it was a girls' low, and then the girls weren't really maintaining the prison, so they shipped them all out, and they brought us all these guys in to do work to the prison. The feds are known for doing this. So I went there, and like a lot of like the homies and my friends, like they threw us on a bus, you know what I mean, and then we took a trip right up to Danbury, Connecticut.
So you were like the first crew of men to kind of get there, or amongst one of the first crew? Yeah,
we were amongst like the first crew. I think when I got there, they had like 300 or 400 people, and I think like they ended up capping it at like 800. So Danbury I was only there for a year because my points had dropped over that 3.5 years. But then what happened is I was there for a year, and then my points dropped again because of that violence charge was 15 years old. So I was camp eligible, and I'm not going to go into detail, but you know, we ended up getting into some stuff at Danbury because I was working in a part of the prison and like the cop was cool. You know, I was learning a lot about psychology, and like he brought us in cheeseburgers. So like me and the kid that were there were like, well, like, it was a crew of us. It was like we're a special crew working on certain stuff in the prison. I'm not gonna go into detail, but I remember like he brought us hamburgers for doing some work, and like us like looking at each other like,
Well, if you'll do that.
If you'll do that, like,
I already
else is
know
he
where
gonna
you were
do?
going with that. Yep, that thinking.
So then, like, I use it. I learned this principle. It's called the foot in the door phenomenon in psychology. I'd been studying a lot of those different things, the principles. First, the guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have him bring cigarettes." I'm like, "No. You don't ask for a big thing. We ask for a little thing." So, like, he brought us in like some workout powder because we were all on the weights, you know. And then he brought cigarettes. You know, a carton of cigarettes was like $2,000. So, like, you know what I mean? I got back in my mind, like that. I see how my mind works, you know, and like this is where I learned. It's important.
The
like,
manipulation tactics.
I'm not gonna glorify it because like this is how I learned, because it spiraled out of control because we ended up getting what we wanted. And then I got scared because it got dark. Like, you know, things that I never would have wanted coming in were coming in, and I was involved. You know, one of the people that was one of the inmates involved in this, there was only like 3 or 4 of us. I think he dimed us out because, you know, one of the guys, he was my counselor. He pulled me and with the other kid that were working over there. He was like, "Oh," you know, after I prayed, I was like, because I didn't know how to get I didn't know how to be like, "No, I can't work over here." I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want him to think something. My counselor was like, "Yeah, like, you know, you guys aren't working over at that spot anymore." You know, and we're like, "Why?" He's like, "We can't tell you." But that was like a blessing in disguise. So then I was like, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to do anything bad again, you know.
Back to the where you were at before, but obviously you slipped, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the old behaviors came back. Yeah,
which is going to happen.
So, yeah, and then I put in for a transfer, and I went to Devon's over at the Devon's prison over in
that's local, right?
That's Fort Devon's. It's in Devon's, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Fort. So they have like a low and a satellite camp. So I went to the camp there, and I did like 5 years there.
Okay.
And just wrapped up.
So, all right, now do 5 years there. Now talk about like when you start getting really, really close to wrapping up. Do you start developing a plan? When does I want to work in the addiction field, you know, come in your brain? And like, what's the plan for your potential upcoming release at that point?
So I had planned on working in addiction because, like, obviously I have a lot of experience, life experience around it, and then I got the education. But when I was studying psychology and I was studying mental illnesses, right, like the DSM-5 and things like that in my textbooks, what I found fascinating is mental illnesses are categorized as chronic diseases, right, which means that untreated, they get worse over time. And what fascinated me about addiction, right, is like if you have schizophrenia, right, like you'll never not have schizophrenia. And like the best chance you got is to manage it with like appropriate therapies and you know, medications and things.
I had a friend that dealt with that.
Yeah, and you know, I see it in my work all the time nowadays. I'm very familiar with it. I wasn't back then, but learning this, what I learned is when you have substance use disorders or behavioral issues, right, they're highly treatable. Right? Because if you can work with a person and you can provide therapies and treatments and guidance for a person to help them overcome that behavioral or habitual problem, then they can heal from that, and then they can be fine forever, potentially, right? And I love that.
Even though they say this is a disease that you have the rest of your life, some people would say that, right? This is like, I'm never not an addict. Is that, I mean, how do you feel about that? Or does that not apply to what you're trying to get at?
Well, yeah, like you're talking about addiction and stuff like that. Like realistically, you and I both know so many people within our stratosphere, right, that have struggled with opioid addiction, but they have great lives now.
Right.
They have families. They don't struggle with opioid addiction, and they're fine. And like they might even be able to smoke a doobie or drink. Some, you know, we all know this.
True.
People heal. We know people that are in the programs, right, and they're completely abstinence-based, and they're fine. Maybe they have a relapse every now and again, but being a full-blown alcoholic and drinking every day is different than somebody relapsing like every.
So it's more like a cancer being in remission kind of.
It's a remission deal. Yeah. And I like that a lot. I remember thinking about that a lot when I was studying psychology, of like how I can apply my education
into monetary, right? Like a job or a vocation. We'll call it a vocation more than a job, right? Did you have any actual connections with something when you were getting out, or is it kind of like was more the plan? Okay, I got to get out and I got to grind it till I get a job, or I guess did you have a specific plan when you got out, or talk about that?
So what I did is, like, before I got out, and like in my schemy brain, I'll just tell the truth. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Hopefully it doesn't backfire. But so when I was at Devon's, I was working at this they would have us offsite at like the Army base or whatever, and like a lot of the guys, it was a great job, but like the guys are having cell phones over there. So I had figured out a way to get myself a cell phone and a plan. So like a year, like I was working there for like 2 years while I was at Devon's over at the Army base, and like the people, one of like the main workers over there liked me a lot, so he let me work in a warehouse, and I had access to equipment, and I used to fix things for him, and like we had a great relationship. So I was building my life on that cell phone while I was waiting to get out. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was like learning, contacting old friends, you know, like I was getting ready, you know, like I had like, luckily I lucked out, you know, and like that was, you know, a contraband item, and I was not supposed to have it. I could have gotten in trouble, even though I'm off-site of the prison doing work for the community. I used that to get myself prepared. So when I came out, I had an idea, and I had family that took me in, and like, you know, and then I kind of was able to build my life up, you know, but yeah, so I was able to get out. You know, you have to go through the motions. You get a job, like a temp agency got me a job at a warehouse, and like my family helped me kind of connect me to that, and then they let me do home confinement at their home.
Talk about the importance of, you know, getting a job and having a job for, you know, when you get out, because they say that, you know, what is it? Idle time is the devil's playground. That's why I always say, like, man, if a guy's busting his ass at work 40 hours a week, I doubt he's out there doing stick-ups. You know what I mean? Who got the energy?
Work is so important. And I worked, like, my whole time in prison, I was working. I was always staying busy, like, and I've learned that. Like, I need that. Like, guys like us need something to do.
Especially the whole can't sit still kind of thing.
I can't.
Man, do you work out? That's part of a big reason with me, like, working out, like, running and working out. I mean...
No, I'm busy. I'm always busy, but I got away from working out. Shame on me. I used to work out, you know, when I was incarcerated, but no, but like working's important in our society. Like if you want to have independence, right, and all the things that you want, like you got to work something, or you got to figure out a way to make money. We live in a capitalistic society.
Absolutely, man.
You know, and you can live off. I work in social services and addiction treatment. You can live off of the social services. You can make it work, but you're subsisting. Yeah. Like you're not thriving. You're subsisting.
You cap out pretty much. There's a ceiling. I always say about that. You know what I mean? For sure. So, you know, I mean, you did a lot of time, right? You got 14 years in, right?
11 years.
Okay, I'm sorry, 11. 11 years in. That was the original thing. I had the number 14 in my head, but that's a long time, man. And a lot of times we see, whether it's music or movies, right? There's this glorification of prison and everything like that. So I always like to ask, like, what's like the worst part about being locked up and having to go to prison, man? For, you know, like in the sense of like a message for the youth. Like, what's the worst part about that?
I think like the most important thing is it's like the worst feeling in the world because it never goes away. Like, you know that you are caged, like, you know you're incarcerated, you can't leave, you can't do what you want, like you'll make it work, but behind like every moment of your life you feel uneasy, you feel uncomfortable, you can't have sex, you know what I mean? Well, I guess you can, like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's kind of messed up to say, but I used to be like, man, I wish like I was bisexual or gay, you know what I mean? Like that would have benefited me, you know, like, so it's like the things like our minds, like you can't have a romantic connection, you don't get to see your family, can't eat the food you want all the time, you got to deal with other people that you might not want to deal with all the time. You're stressed out. It's like, it's one of the worst feelings. Like I would say to anybody, if you're thinking about doing something that is illegal and could land you in prison, think twice about it. Talk to somebody that you care about and trust, right? Before you do that, because like you will regret it. And if you want to blame other people for being in prison, the chances are when you get out, right, if you don't take accountability, you might end up back there. Like you got to take accountability, because like it took me years, man, to take accountability for the things I did.
One of the biggest parts is the accountability, and I'm always just kind of big on what are the things that I can control anyway. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, essentially what accountability is, and knowing where you messed up. And what are some things that you learned about yourself though throughout that time in prison?
I don't know. Yeah, I know. I learned that like, I'm a vulnerable human being, like we're all vulnerable, you know, and like to be wise and to make wise decisions and be patient, not only give other people time, but give myself time, like give, you know, my thoughts time. You don't be afraid to fail, right? Like, cause I failed, but I didn't let it define me, you know? You wanna rise above that.
I saw a meme or whatever it is that says, hey, you failed, congratulations. Most people don't even try, you know what I mean? So it's a part of it. I always say, like, people look at failure like the opposite of success, when it's not. It's part of it. It's an essential ingredient in the recipe of success, and you're gonna have to fail. And there's people like me, I have to fail probably multiple times before I get something right. Whether it's doing this, the podcast, you know what I mean? I messed that up a couple times, but then I always take it to the extreme. Like, look at life. I had to go to prison really to learn, you know what I mean? That from my mistakes, man. So I think that's big for sure, man. So is there also, like with the whole substance abuse, right? A lot of times that's a mental health thing too. So is that something that you're addressing now? Anything as far as like dealing with your mental health, or do you have like certain outlets that you may have?
So yeah, like no, and I've been working on my mental health for years and years now, like well over, like since I've been in prison, it's been a huge focus of mine. I would say like, yeah, like number one, it's like my relationships. I keep my relationships solid because we need feedback. Like we need to be able to communicate with people and share even our deepest, most like innermost, thoughts and rumblings and emotions. I'm able to do that. And I always make time for myself. Like just recently, I got a cat recently. Like I don't realize how fucking therapeutic that is. Like I love that cat so much because, and like I'm a serial dater, like I've been struggling to find like a real solid romantic relationship. It's kind of like, at my age and like where I am in life, it's kind of difficult. So, like I can't depend on that as being like a support. So like my mother now is a strong support most of the time. My family members, my friends, like I'm a networker, right? Like, cause if you're in the street, like you were doing it for a while and you were doing it in a capacity where like you were getting all your needs met out there, right? Because they can be kind of extravagant. Then like you were a good networker, you were a good people person. Like you were, so I just took that and then I just flipped it around into a positive way. So I developed that network and those people, and like, instead of trusting them with all the bad shit and illegal shit I'm doing or expecting them I'm trusting them with like inner parts of myself and things I'm developing and ideas for the future, right? And then I'm helping them build just as much as I'm building. Like it's a whole mutual process, right? Because if it's all about you and you're just thinking about yourself, right? Like I hate to say this, but it's a fact. Is like you're not going to accomplish much because people are smart and then they're going to be like, oh, this motherfucker's all about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're going to make distance. So it's just trying to learn how to develop those valuable relationships with people that are worthy of being within my inner circle so that I can be at peace and develop in a way that I want to develop and have the things I want. Like if I want to have a family, like that's a goal one day. I got to work hard and save money. To do that, like I gotta be in good companies and good businesses, and I can't do that if I don't have the right people around me. So finding the good people. Like in this industry of addiction and social services, you got people that don't do shit and sit around and collect a paycheck. I just circumnavigate around people like that, and I find the people like myself that are like good networkers and they're smart and like they're like very caring and compassionate. Smart and like they know how to solve social problems and things, because like I learn from them, we learn from each other, and then I try to like yourself, I'm sure you try to like level up, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, you got to build off each other, and I try to say put yourself in a mutually beneficial win-win situations, right? Instead of these lose-lose situations we found ourselves in for many years where even the winner is a loser. Like, yeah, you won the fight, but then congratulations, you also won a jail cell for the next couple of years, right? I mean, there's no winner, right? That's a lose-lose, and then never mind if, somebody passes away, that's definitely like lose-lose because one person is gone, the other person is doing life, their families, everybody's impacted by that for sure. But you had mentioned about having a family being a goal. So what about some of your professional goals moving forward and some things that you want to accomplish in the recovery and social services field? Touch on those goals, and then also to the shirt you got going on there, Massachusetts organization. Like, how did you get into that? And then I guess first touch on that, what that's about, how you got involved, and then what are your future goals as far as professionally?
Well, it's like more is like something that's deep in my heart because I worked there for a year recently, and then I changed jobs for reasons I won't discuss here, but I love More because it was an organization created by a woman named Marianne Frangulis. I love movers. Like, I like people that fucking move mountains. Marianne Frangulis, you know, she's been doing policy and advocacy around addiction recovery for like 35, maybe 40 years, right? You know, and she's just like an amazing human being, and I love her to death. But like the things she's accomplished, like the Good Samaritan law, that was, More was involved in that. Like new legislature that's out there. A lot of the prison, we back, you know, like they back the prison stuff, you know what I mean? Like, what's the sentences, what is that?
Juvenile life and all that, I'm
Yeah,
sure probably
like-
is part of it, or
Services over sentences,
Okay.
you know, like treatment over sentences. Like, so when it comes to, you know, people, I have to say, and the team at More, like my colleagues over there were amazing. Like they're still friends today, and I love them dearly. So I just happened to throw this on.
Okay,
today.
I
You
didn't
know what
know.
I mean? Like,
Some
I was
people
running
purposely
around.
make a choice.
It might have been. It might have been a what's that word that they use?
What, like a subconscious
thing,
unconscious.
But
I
yeah,
forget,
so like
but-
I love More. That was my last job, and like now I'm out here doing work, helping folks, and this is something we're doing. We want to be able to affect change on the highest level of society, right? So people get what they need. Like, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, right? Like, there's prisons because people commit crimes. Like, we need to understand like what the crimes are. Not everybody, like, you know, we can't just open the doors of all the prisons and let the fucking people rush out into the street.
Yeah.
But like, you need to be able to treat people, because they're human beings, with compassion, right? Like, you can't, like, you know, the prisons is like these drab white walls.
Yeah.
It's like they could do a lot of work to, you know, make it at least a little bit more comfortable, you know,
For sure.
you know, for people, and be like a little bit more productive, you know, help them,
Absolutely.
you know, because 95% of American prisoners are going to be released.
And that's what I always say too about like the importance of like, I'm like huge trades and education too, because like I'm saying, that person who I was just talking to you about who's working a 48-hour job is not doing an armed robbery, so that might protect your family, right? Or this person's family, or the public, right? Because these people are have other things to do with their time. What's up, Maddie? Is my boy right there, man. So what has been what's your favorite part about working in your field with recovery and social services?
I love the people, you know, like not only do I love a lot of my colleagues, you know, I love all my colleagues, but I love because the folks that I work with are me on some level. Like, I've been somewhere where they've been.
Right.
They need somebody like me that can understand, but is going to be there and fight for them if they can't fight for themselves. Because if you fight for somebody, right, you're giving them the encouragement to fight for themselves.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've seen it. Like, I've seen the fucking the switch flip in people that have never ever thought that they have to fight for themselves and you know, fight for their happiness or take accountability. But when I see that switch go off, right, and then I see that person go, kind of like taking the training wheels off of like the bike, so they can ride it for the first time. Like, there's no better feeling in the world. So like, I just care about people, you know. Like, business, people make money, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, they either get enough wage to survive, or like they become insanely wealthy. But it's just such selfish endeavor, you know.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. Connections and you know, so we're social beings, you know what I mean? And having those personal connections with people are things that, you know, you remember forever over, you know, memories. I mean memories over money. But of course, like you said, it's a capitalistic society, and we need money. I say, like, you know, my work isn't as purposeful, I feel like, as what you're doing. But I'm like, whatever, man. My job, that's a necessary evil. I say it in jest. It's not evil at all. But like, to me, you know, it is what it is.
but
man.
you're doing both though, because you're here, you're doing this. Like,
Right,
you're
right.
giving back to society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But you're also doing your other job too.
And I feel like that's big for me, because I don't feel, not that builders aren't important and construction is like, we need builders, but I just don't feel the purpose I feel as opposed to doing this and having these conversations. And speaking of this conversation, I guess, why was it important or something that you wanted to do to come up here and tell your story? Why was that important to you?
Maritza, who works here, was awesome. You know, like I
Absolutely.
came in vibe with her. She told me about you.
I know.
And then I was like, yo, I think he's on my Facebook. And then I looked you up and I seen some folks, you know, you talking to some folks I know. And I just wanted to connect with you because you're a good, you're a cool dude. Like this has been a conversation, so I've gotten to know you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I mean, listen. I support the cause wholeheartedly. You know, we're all different, and I think it's very important that you know everybody that has been through these experiences comes up here and shares their truth, their experience, to share it with other people and just give solid advice because you could be saving that next life. You know,
Absolutely.
so
And we are all different, but I think we're more the same too than people realize. And with everything with society and you know, the media, social media, where the hyper focus on the differences is kind of crazy. So I feel like, you know, to have a place where we could come together and share some of our similar things is cool. And I guess if there was like one thing that you would want someone to hopefully get out of hearing your story, one message, what do you think that would be?
just keep getting up. Just keep getting up. Don't ever lay down, right? Just don't ever give up. Just keep getting up. I've never seen a quarterback that doesn't get up when he's sacked. You know, like even if they got to drag you out in a stretcher, right? You're gonna get up eventually. You just never stop. Never stop getting up. That's the best advice I got.
Absolutely, man. Get up fast too. Like, don't stay down there, man. Don't looking for pity. Get right up like like it didn't affect you, because that could get in the minds of the opponent, man, for sure. So I guess if there was anything that you wanted to touch on that we maybe didn't get a chance to, or if not, like some last words for the audience before I let you go, bro.
Yeah, just be kind to people. You know, just show people love. Like there's just people are so quick to judge others in our society and point fingers. You know, like I think people should, you know, just be kind to others. You know, it's a process. It's taken me years to, you know, and I still struggle. We all struggle with that. But like the practice is like, even if there's things I don't like and things that bother me, is I'm mindful to just let people know that they're important and that they're a human being and I care about them, even if they've done things that I don't agree with.
Yep.
You know, and that's hard. That's hard for me, and it's hard for a lot of people. So if I can do it, right? I hate to say this, like this is cliche, but if I can do it, then y'all can do it too.
Yeah.
Like we should all have love for each other, because like you said, at the core, we're all just human beings. We're just people trying to figure this shit out.
Absolutely, man. And so Marshall Lane, man, I'm B. Luke, man. Thanks again for coming, man. I've had a great time. It was a great conversation. Guys, remember, this is the Bounce Back Podcast. It is what it is. What's next? That's what you make it. On that note, we're out of here. Peace.
Peace.
Bounce back, ain't got a moment. When they see you down, there's no